Um, there we go. I'm Susie Middleton. I'm from the Plunkett Foundation, and I'm going to try and share my screen with you so you can see a presentation about community businesses. Can you see my screen? Great, thank you, Paul. So I'm going to run through this, and then at the end, if you have any questions, please do ask. I believe you can put them in the chat bar as well, so do feel free to do that. But here we go. So I am Susie Middleton. I'm a project manager at the Plunkett Foundation. We're a charity that supports community-owned businesses right across the UK to set up and thrive. And today I'm going to tell you a little bit about what community businesses are and explain how places of worship can make excellent locations for community businesses to run from, as well as a bit about the benefits that working together like this can bring both to the place of worship and to the wider community. I'll start by telling you a little bit about Plunkett, who we are and what we do. So we are a charity, and we have been inspiring and empowering communities UK-wide for over 100 years. We champion and support community businesses, and we provide practical advice, support and training to help community businesses reach trading stage and beyond. And we act as a voice in policy on behalf of rural community businesses. We seek basically to create an environment in which community businesses will thrive, and we do this by championing their cause to create a supportive policy, funding and advisory landscape to have them operate from within. We have a network of advisors, expert advisors right across the UK who support groups on everything from engaging with the community to governance and legal structures, recruiting and training and retaining volunteers, and help communities establish and run successful community businesses with long-term survival rates. And I'm going to come back to the survival rates of this sort of business a bit later on. As well as offering support and advice to communities, Plunkett works collaboratively and strategically at a national level with a range of stakeholders, including government and public bodies, corporates, funding institutions, and other third sector organisations. And we also have a membership scheme, and our members get access to a wider range of support and discounts on a range of services. So that's who we are. But what are community-owned businesses? Community-owned businesses are enterprises that are run democratically by members of the community on behalf of the community, and the community is the owner of the business ultimately. They trade for the benefit of the local area, with profits going back into the business, or the profits are used to support other local community activities. And they're often created to address needs and issues that exist within a community. So they might be set up to respond to a lack of services in a little village where there's no shop and no post office and no bus route, which means you're a bit stuck if you don't have a car. There may be no employment opportunities there or volunteering opportunities. Or it might be that there's a lot of isolation and loneliness in a particular community, and the community business is set up to address these mental health and well-being issues. As I said earlier, the businesses are owned by the community and run by the community for the benefit of the community. And what is really important to us at Plunkett is that these businesses have a wide and open membership, so all voices are heard. So we advocate a one member, one vote setup. So if a community sells shares to get it up and running, and I buy £5,000 worth of shares and you buy £50 worth of shares, we both each only have one vote at the AGM. So why do we do what we do at Plunkett? Well, we firmly believe that community businesses have a massive positive impact on the communities that they serve. We know that collectively across the UK, they employ 3,000 people, with 25,000 volunteers and 325,000 individuals benefit from them. And there are 18,000 individuals in that pot who could be considered to be at risk. So it's really important and valuable stuff. So the impacts of community businesses on the local community, I touched upon overcoming isolation, which is particularly important for the elderly and those without transport. I touched on training and employment and young people's training, etc. We know about the benefits that being a volunteer brings to the individual. Community businesses can help bring communities together, so people from different areas within the community who might not normally come into contact with each other will meet and interact. Community businesses can have a really positive environmental impact, talking about shops that offer refill services or zero waste, etc., or pubs that are run off power generated by renewable energy sources. Community businesses can offer a hub for those in need, so someone that comes in once a month to help people with their paperwork or support with IT or food banks. And they're a great place for wider community activities. So I put here knitting groups and book exchanges, etc., whatever the community needs. I wanted to give you a few examples of some of the community businesses we've supported and we continue to support right across the UK. So community businesses can come in the form of shops. This is a shop in Surrey, Strood Green in Surrey. They can be cafes. This is the Galleries shop and cafe in Freshford, which is Wiltshire. There are a growing number of community-owned pubs where communities have bought a pub which has been at risk of closure or has already closed, and which the community feel they want to save because otherwise it's going to be flattened or turned into housing. And there's a lot that a pub can offer as well as just food and drink in terms of additional services to the community. This one's Yoldy Cross in Ryton, which is near Durham. Community businesses can take the form of bakeries, of farms. This is Sutton Community Farm near Croydon. This is Ipswich, where there's a community-owned woodlands. There's more and more of those popping up across the country as well. This is a little bookshop that's owned by the community in Crediton in Devon. And there are increasing numbers of distilleries and breweries. This is Glenwithis in Dingwall in the Highlands. And farmers markets can be community owned, and that's often a really good place to start a community business. To use the term low-hanging fruit, they don't need a permanent venue to get going. You can see this one is outdoors, run under awnings or pop-up tents. So here we have a lovely picture of some public toilets, and I will explain why. One of the main reasons that community businesses fail to reach trading stages because they don't have anywhere to run from. So what Plunkett does is help communities get really creative to explore all their options and increase their chances of realising their ambitions. So this community in Cornwall had a public toilet, but they needed a shop. So they took possession of the toilets and they made the community enterprise that they wanted. This is what it looks like now. And you can see it still includes a toilet. So that was a big success. Other communities buy a temporary structure which might look like this. Often the business will remain in that structure. It works well for them, or they might just use it until they've managed to raise the funds to put something more permanent up. This community in Devon didn't have anywhere at all to site their shop, so they thought, well, we'll build one underground. You can see there what they've done, which is very imaginative. And it really is down to each community to think about what they need and bring creativity to bring an asset to life. And the flip side of that is that they look at the assets that they already have and they work out how best they can be used to support the community in which they're located. And that's the reason that we're here this afternoon. So Plunkett Foundation is supporting more and more communities to work in partnership with local places of worship to explore co-location. So that would mean having a community-owned business running from within an active place of worship on its grounds or in its buildings, in a building that it's owned. So the image you can see on the screen here is St Leonard's Church in Yarpole, Herefordshire. It looks like a pretty normal church from the outside, and inside it's a beautifully traditional church, but it has a community-owned shop and a post office and a cafe running from inside it. And I'm going to come back to the example of Yarpole because I think it's lovely. So why would a place of worship consider co-locating with a community business? As I touched on before, one of the main reasons that community businesses fail to reach trading stage is lack of a suitable venue. And at the same time, places of worship right across the UK, as you all know, are facing increasing costs to keep historic and much loved buildings viable and sustainable. In addition, community-owned businesses and places of worship share so many of the same goals, so serving the community and acting as a hub for the community. And so by co-locating, not only is the community business getting a place to run from, but the place of worship is generating an income stream. And both parties are achieving their goals of serving their communities. So, recognising the potential that partnerships between places of worship and communities has, Plunkett's formed an alliance of faith organisations and non-faith organisations and relevant stakeholders, and is committed to the concept of growing the number of community businesses co-locating in places of worship through the creation of a Places of Worship campaign. And as part of this campaign, Plunkett's received generous funding from the Benefact Trust to enable us to offer free bespoke advice to community groups and places of worship at the really early stages of exploring how co-location might work for them. And we can also offer grants of up to £5,000 to help with feasibility and development work. So these grants could be used for anything from paying for consultation boards, printing flyers and posters for consultations, renting a room for consultations, to commissioning architects, for example, to look at how you could get water, toilets or a kitchen into a place of worship. And the really great thing is that although Plunkett, although we specialise in rural communities, this funding is for rural and urban communities. So it was really inclusive. So what I want to do now is just show you a few examples of where co-location is already working really well, and just tell you a bit more about the benefits that the places of worship hosting these businesses are seeing. And then I'm going to give you a couple of our top tips to engage with your community and to bring them on with your vision. So I'm back to Yarpole here. I told you I'd come back to it. We saw the picture of the shop earlier, so that's basically behind where the photographer is standing for this. I'll tell you a little bit about the benefits that they brought their particular church. So the fabric of the building has been protected. The community business here has raised funds to insulate the church roof and install underfloor heating, and replace the pews with these chairs that you can see. And so generally the building has been protected. There's no more leaky roof, and it's just a much nicer, more comfortable space for worship for the congregation. It's bringing communities together. You've got people coming into the church that ordinarily wouldn't. Sharing the running costs. The community business pays for its overheads, and as I touched on before, there's rent or a lease contributing to generation of income for the church. The local congregation is strengthened, and you're retaining a community hub. I said earlier that I'd come back to the resilience of the community business model, and I wanted to let you know that community pubs have a 99% survival rate, and community shops have a 92% survival rate, and the national average for small to medium-sized enterprises is 44%. Obviously, we are now in very challenging times for businesses of all sizes, whether they're privately owned or community owned, but these figures hopefully will demonstrate to you that co-locating with a community business really is an excellent way to secure additional revenue for the long term for your place of worship. This is the cafe that sits above the shop that within St Leonard's. I went to visit with a couple of colleagues. That's me with my back to the camera. And I think I was there on a Thursday. There were no services on in the church, but the cafe and the shop were busy all day with people from the community coming in and out, and local walkers, cyclists popping in for a coffee or to buy the paper. And it's the same with the community businesses in places of worship in urban areas. You're getting people popping in on the way back from the school run, or people on the way to work coming to buy a coffee. So this example is Droxford, which is a village in Hampshire. So it's a Norman church, and it was at real risk as a result of a long period of lack of maintenance. So the community came together to deliver 2 projects, firstly to repair and restore the church, which they did, and once that was done, they've raised funds to add an annex cafe with a kitchen and toilet, which you can see there sticking out the side of the building. Now, the community business is run separately from the church, which has meant that it's had access to secular funding. So they receive money from, amongst others, the National Lottery Heritage Fund, the local county council, and the Garfield Weston Foundation. Wilford's Cafe, as it's become known, it was initially open just for 3 afternoons a week for tea and cakes, but because of the number of people who wanted to use it and because of the number of people volunteering their time to run it, they're now open Monday to Saturday. And it's interesting, I think, that the constitution that the committee running the cafe follows has 3 objectives for the future. First is to continue to look after the church. The second is to promote Droxford's heritage. And the third is to broaden community activities. I'll take you into Wales now. This is Shop Dewi, a community shop based in Ceredigion. And this one's located in the church hall, right beside the village church. The village church, I've managed to crop off the picture, but it's kind of up the hill to the right. And this community business leases the church hall from the church in Wales and pays into the church hall fund, plus it covers its own bills. And under our funding, as I mentioned before, we can look to support community businesses operating on church land as well as within the place of worship. Another example of that working really well is Sheraton Fitch Payne Community Shop in Devon. It's located in a small building on land belonging to the village's Methodist church. It's right next to the chapel itself. Back to Shop Dewi. They've recently purchased electric heaters for the church hall using a COVID relief grant that was only available for secular organisations, but which again has, as a result of co-location, been able to benefit the church community as well as the village community. And the heaters are run by solar panels, which the community business raised the money to buy and install on the roof of the church hall. So that's really lovely. Grindleford Community Shop is in the Peak District, and the shop is located in the vestry of St Helen's Church. It's a shop and a little cafe which serves visitors as well as residents. And this group got in touch with us and we helped them with their governance to become a legal entity, which is now known as a Community Benefit Society. And they offered shares to the community of £10 each. And by doing this, they raised £3,000 to buy the essentials that they needed to get up and running. And they also received a Derbyshire County Council leader grant, which helped start the project. And they got up and running in June 2014. So this is my last example today. This is the Chalk Valley Community Hub. They're in Broadchalk in Wiltshire. And you can see there the Villages United Reformed Church. And in it, you can't really tell from the front, but it's got a shop, a post office, and a thriving coffee shop, as well as a meeting space upstairs, which is used by local groups and representatives of the other churches that are in the village. And their story, in around 2012, at the same time as the village was set to lose its shop and its post office, Broadchalk's URC congregation had dwindled to the point where it just couldn't provide for the upkeep of the chapel building. So the solution to everyone was to create a community hub, but in a way that allowed the congregation to continue to worship in the space. And it's been a roaring success, not just for the URC, whose congregation has increased from 5 to 20 since the hub opened, coming up to 10 years ago, but for the community as a whole. And the hub has a pool of 90 volunteers, and that includes a core of about 30, with a mix of people doing regular shifts and those who are helping out on a more ad hoc basis. And there's a really, really lovely community spirit here, and they regularly have nights for the volunteers to say thank you for their work. This one is a really great example of the church not having the capacity on its own to deliver a project the size that this was, but how through collaboration with the wider community, they've brought the resources and the man hours needed to deliver it. In addition to these community businesses, we've also recently supported a group in Gloucestershire who are putting a bakery in their church. and a group right in the heart of Liverpool who are about to open a bookshop and a cafe to serve their wider community. And we're also supporting a lot of churches at the moment who are at the very early stages of looking to the wider community to help with the running of ventures they already have going within the church. So it might be a church that has a volunteer-run cafe, so run by a couple of volunteers from the church's congregation, but they recognise that it's got the potential to expand, open up more frequently and bring more people into the building, which is particularly important right now with the cost of heating people's homes. But of course, capacity and resource is a big thing, and it needs to come from outside the church. Or it could be a food bank that the church would like to turn into more of a community larder. So I know a lot of churches are running food banks at the moment in these difficult times, but they're seeing that potentially a community larder that serves the wider community to ensure everybody has access to good, healthy food and to reduce food waste is a potential. And they're looking for wider community support to help with that. Our advisors, who I mentioned before, will talk through the very earliest of ideas and offer support on everything from governance and legal structures. And our Benefact Trust funding is intended to help exactly those groups who are just exploring it or who have taken the first few steps and need a little bit of guidance with where to go next. And I do think it's worth saying here that Plunkett is the national expert on community-owned businesses, but we would never profess to be the expert on the church side of things. And so this is another reason why the alliance I mentioned earlier is a fantastic thing to have created, because there's so much knowledge within that group of organisations to help with specific questions about things like permissions to make changes to church buildings, and we can facilitate those conversations. So we also have a number of resources to help with practical questions that frequently arise in the early stages of thinking about this sort of project. And we'll always signpost to other fantastic sources of information. Some of you might know of the Crossing the Threshold toolkit produced by the Diocese of Hereford, which is a wonderful resource with so much information in it. And so what we produce will complement what's already out there. So this is a snip of our Plunkett website. So on the left, you can see some stories of other community businesses. A couple of these I've touched on. You can see Chalk Valley and Grindleford there, as well as Yarpole. Leiston Community Church Garden is a project in Suffolk where they've opened up a piece of derelict land in front of the church to make it a warm and green community space. And we provided them with a grant to ensure that they could get public access through that piece of land. Amberley is another Gloucestershire project. They're currently making the physical changes to the church to get a community-owned shop in there. The bakery with the pictures of those lovely pastries there, unfortunately, has recently closed, but that was a project that ran out from the kitchens of a church in central Coventry, where they helped refugees to develop skills as bakers. And sold their lovely bakery products to the wider community. So lots of ideas, as well as the resources here, essential steps for getting set up, a helpful consultation questionnaire, etc. So they're really helpful, I hope. We've got two more with a designer at the moment. One of those is intended for people within the church community, and we've written it in collaboration with some of the people from the Alliance, based on conversations we've had from those in the church community, and we hope it's going to answer some of the practical questions about how having a community business can fit within the mission of the church, how will having a shop in my church affect our services, etc. So hopefully we can cover some of those off with those. There are many steps to getting a community business set up in a place of worship, from creating a vision to writing a business plan and raising the funds to actually get going. And Plunkett can help with all of these things, but one thing that's key throughout the entire journey is going to be engaging with the community. And I spoke a little bit earlier about having the extra capacity and resource from the wider community and the benefits that that can bring to a project. And so, of course, good engagement with the wider community can really garner the support of volunteers and ensure that there's customer demand to meet your business and project. So if you make people feel like part of the project, they're more likely to support it. And a lovely example from Yarpole that I like to cite is that when COVID first hit, the community shop had so many volunteers from the community come forward to help deliver food for people shielding, that when the vicar, Reverend Matthew Burns, offered his own time to help with this, he was told, no, go and concentrate on the mission. We've got more than enough hands here to man the fort. So good engagement from the start will also reduce the risk of opposition to what you're trying to achieve further on by allowing voices and concerns from within the church community and within the wider community to be heard. And it gives those leading the project the opportunity to learn new information and hear new ideas that increase the chances of the project being a success. So any community business, whether it's planning to run from within a place of worship or from within a porter cabin, needs to keep its community engaged. So I just wanted to briefly share our top tips on how to do this. And I do apologise if I'm covering what you already know here. But first of all, we would always say, be clear. So ensure that the messages about your project and what you want to achieve are clear and consistent. Agree on 1 or 2 key sentences, setting out your goals and why it's beneficial and important to the community, and just stick to those. Be realistic. It's good to dream, but plans have to be grounded in reality. And be honest. You all know it goes a long way. No one has all the answers, and sometimes things do go wrong, but just be honest about it. Be inclusive. So if you're going to consult your community about your project, think about the quieter voices and how you're going to include those. If you're conducting a survey online to find out what people want, how are you going to be able to reach people who perhaps don't use a computer regularly? Or if you're going to do an in-person consultation, are you holding it at a time and in a building that's going to make it accessible to everybody? And be positive. Lead from the front with positivity to build positivity. Getting a community business set up is a long process, can be a long process, and getting one set up within an active place of worship, we're learning fast, is an even longer process, but very worthwhile, of course. But it's tiring for those people involved. So keep your supporters engaged and celebrate every small win along the journey. And be organised. So keep in mind GDPR regulations, of course, but ensure that you create a database of supporters and stakeholders that can grow and be called upon as your project progresses. And finally, remember that everything that you publish, whether that's a poster or a flyer, a social media post, or a whole website dedicated to your project, just make it really clear and easy for people to see how to get involved and who to contact and how. So this is my last slide. Thank you very much for listening. I can't see any of you at the moment, so I'm hoping you're still there. Thank you to the Benefact Trust for funding our project. Just to remind you that we can offer free advice and support, so do get in touch. And we have these grants of up to £5,000, although we can be flexible depending on what the need is, flexible with that amount. They're available until the end of this year. So if you've got an idea about how your church might co-locate with a community-owned business, then please call us. We have a lovely team here, very friendly, and we'd really like to hear from you and have a chat through your ideas and see how we might be able to help you. So does anybody have any questions?
How long have you got?
Well, we have a little bit of time, but if you have more, you can always contact us afterwards, Paul.
Yeah, Sarah, we did talk earlier this year, well, via email anyway. And just to make my life really interesting, I've had 2 eye operations and my daughter's been really poorly, so that really lapsed. Can I simply suggest I phone you or contact you at some point in the near-ish future?
Please do, yeah, please do. I do remember your name now, Paul. Do you remember your name?
Well, good, because I sometimes forget. Yeah, lots changed at my end. It's a community project already that's growing quite strongly, possibly too strongly, because it's difficult to keep track of it.
Okay.
It's based in a large-ish modern church building, thank goodness. But the principal idea is to convert the community project into a CIO, or that's what we're being recommended to do by the local coordinator, council-led coordinator. So just really, first and foremost, wanting help with that transition.
Yep.
And advice too on how to not compete between the church and the community project, and not to step on each other's toes.
Yeah.
Tricks of the trade, I guess. But yeah, your talk was excellent. Thank you. It's really, really encouraging and be helpful.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad it was. But what you just, sorry.
It really was. It just really was. Yeah.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear. And what you've just asked for is exactly what we're here to help with. And these advisors that we're working with are building up an arsenal of a bank of groups going through exactly the same as you are. So lots of sort of live experiences to talk to you about and to sort of forge that way through. So yeah, I really would get in touch as soon as you're able, and we'll see what we can do to support you.
So just email you again. Would that be okay? Just a quick
reminder. Absolutely fine. Yeah, please do. I'll look forward to hearing from you.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Anything from you, Peter? Oh, I can't hear you, Peter. You're off mute, but I can't hear you. Oh dear.
Try chat, maybe.
Yeah, do you want to try the chat bar? I feel like technology should make things easy, but sometimes it's just an additional challenge, isn't it? In the first, I've delivered this twice today. In the first one, my Wi-Fi went for 10 minutes of my presentation. I didn't realize I was just talking to myself. So, yes, that was helpful.
Well, you were definitely talking to me just now.
And Peter's struggling. I'm going to put in where's the chat gone?
In my screen, it's the top right beneath the thing that says sponsor level main, and then it looks like a search box.
I can't see it.
Are you going through Zoom Direct, or are you going through Hoover?
I'm just in Zoom.
Right, because we're viewing this through Hoover.
Oh, right. I was just going to give you an email address, Peter, and then if you'd like to ask questions, then you can do it that way if you'd like. So it did flash up on the screen earlier, but it's info@plunkett.co.uk. info@plunkett.co.uk, and that'll come through to our community business team, and we'll do our very best to answer anything that you'd like to know. But thank you for staying with me for the course of my presentation. I hope it's been helpful. Do tell people about this model, and encourage people to come to us if they've got ideas, please. We'd like to make the most of this funding that Benefact Trust has so generously given us to support as many groups and as many communities as we can. So
I'll aim to email you. Well, it's either going to be tonight or Monday.
Okay.
Weekends being the day job.
Yeah. I will. I'm in all next week, so I'll pick it up as soon as I get in. So yeah, that would be lovely. And I don't know whether Peter's still there, but we'll look forward to hearing from you too, Peter. Thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Cheerio.